Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm Jill. I'm the venture principal here at Capital Factory. I work on our latest venture fund, the Texas Fund, and the investing that we do out of the fund. Today, we will be doing our Rolling Funds series with Tim Draper of Draper Associates and Joshua Baer of Capital Factory. This is a series that we do highlighting different investors, startup founders, and really interesting people in the tech community. So I'm super excited for you all to hear from them today. Joshua Baer, our CEO, is also the founder of Capital Factory. We're a startup community that's really designed to help startups find their first investors, their first customers and employees. And Josh actually founded his very first startup in 1996 out of his dorm room at Carnegie Mellon, and now actually teaches a startup class at the University of Texas at Austin. He has a ton of accomplishments. Some of them just to recognize are that he is a Henry Crown Fellow and a Braddock Scholar at the Aspen Institute. He's also a member of the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations Young Leaders Forum, an Eisenhower Fellow, and also the U.S.-China Relations and also a recipient of the Anti-Defamation League Torch of Liberty, which is extremely impressive. Josh lives here locally in Austin with his wife, Amy, and his 3 fantastic children. And the best way to get a hold of Josh is through Twitter. So you can find him at Joshua Baer. And today, joining Josh on stage will be Tim Draper. I'm sure many of you know him. He founded Draper Associates in 1985 and has operated his global venture capital fund for years with a ton of successes, a lot of great startups, which I'm sure you all have heard of as well. He also built the Draper Network, which is an international group that's supporting funds, and Draper University, which really helps people and founders build their ideas and bring them to life. Some of his notable investments include Tesla, Baidu, Hotmail, Robinhood, and multiple crypto blockchain startups such as Coinbase, OpenNode, the Tezos project, and a ton more. But he also recently invested in Capital Factory's latest venture fund, and we've really enjoyed working more with Tim and getting to know him. So with that, Josh and Tim, I will let you all take the stage.
Great. Thanks, Jill.
Thanks, Jill.
Good to see you, Tim.
Yeah, you too.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Well, Josh, I will let you guys kick it off, and I will go down.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, Tim, it's great to see you. Last time I saw you, we were at the Draper Startup House, and there was a crazy party going on with a whole bunch of founders pitching you and then suddenly pitching me. It was still kind of summer. Now.
And did you go into the water?
You had just come out of the water, I think, when I got there. It was something that was what it looked like. I was a little late to the party. But now Austin's cooling off a little bit. Gets cool at night. It's November. That's like, not winter or anything, just not summer. And so you should come back soon. This is some of the best.
This is the best time, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not too bad. But it's been great. We've been seeing you a lot in Austin more lately. I've seen, not like we haven't seen you before, but a lot more lately. And so that's been a lot of fun.
I look at it as going to the free country of Texas.
Come to the free country of Texas. I know you're particularly enjoying it. It was California was under lockdown. Yeah. Well, we've gotten to talk a lot over the past couple of months. But I'm looking forward to this today. As I was getting ready, I was just writing down, some of the. There's still I have lots of questions, things I've been wondering that I get to ask, and now I can just ask in front of everybody. So, I'm excited to have this conversation. Appreciate you taking the time to chat with us.
Well, fire away.
Yeah.
I hope I have answers.
Draper, it's just one of the most well-known, iconic names in venture capital. Your dad was a VC. Your kids are VCs. Did you grow up knowing you were going to be VC? Was this inevitable?
No, I grew up thinking I was going to be a baseball player, but then I realized I couldn't hit a curveball. And then as I got a little older, I saw the value of entrepreneurship, and so I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But as time went on, I realized that I was much better at going a little deep in a lot of different areas than I was going super deep in one area. And so I didn't have the right temperament to be an entrepreneur. But it turns out, as a venture capitalist, I've been able to sort of use my entrepreneurial wings because venture capital is also itself a very dynamic industry. Just as Capital Factory has been very innovative, we're constantly innovating at Draper Associates, trying new things. We have a show called Meet the Drapers. Now there are 12 million viewers, and the entrepreneurs can crowdfund on the show. And that's become a really exciting thing. And Draper University has been terrific for the 2,200 students who've come through. We've had students from 102 different countries. And they've started about 500 companies. So I like the innovation. I like being an entrepreneur in a venture capitalist suit.
Well, yeah, that's something I think we have a lot in common. Capital Factory is an investor. We are in the VC world, but we're a company as well. We offer products and services to our customers who are entrepreneurs, and that gives us an advantage in being an investor. And I think you do a lot of the same things. And it's funny.
I always looked at it that way, but I had a partner way back when who looked at it very differently, in that he said, my customers are my limited partners, my investors. I looked and I said, my customers are my entrepreneurs. And the two of us sort of made it work for a long time. And then eventually I spun out and did my own thing.
Yeah, I think I'm more in your camp. I think the long term, to be in it for the long term, serve the entrepreneurs, and then you'll get all the deal flow, and the investors have to come to you. But another way too, as I've been, Capital Factory's always evolving as well and trying new things, and we often like to think we're really innovative. And in a similar way to how I hear, every time you see a new Web 2 or Web 3 now technology come out, in a lot of ways you can trace it back to like, well, what was the plain text Linux version of that? Like the wall was like Facebook and like, different like versions of chat or email or, or web pages or whatever it might be. There was like some like, Linux FTP equivalent of it. This analogy suddenly feels terribly wrong. Sorry, the way it's kind of about to come out. But I was going to say, in that way, that like feeling like someone's already been there before you when you think you've got a good idea. Like, I feel like every time we think we've got some really innovative idea, I look back and I'm like, wait a minute, did Draper already do that a long time ago? Like, they kind of did. Like, we're thinking about how we could so I'm thinking about like how we could help incubate funds more formally, because that's something that we've done informally quite a bit. We've helped launch a number of funds, the most successful one probably being Multicoin Capital, which is much more successful than Capital Factory. But as I thought about that, I'm thinking, wow, we should be like an accelerator of funds. We should be helping launch all these funds. And then I'm like, wait, oh, like the Drapers. Wait, there's like Drapers all over the world, like all these Draper funds. Like, did he already do this? I think he already did this. So can you tell me about this? Why are there Draper funds all over the world?
Well, what happened was I grew up in the Silicon Valley, and I saw that it was this really exciting place where people had this can-do attitude, and they wanted to build things, and they built things up, and what used to be a bunch of prune yards is now like the center of entrepreneurial activity. And that entrepreneurial activity has created jobs and wealth and freedom for people everywhere. And I looked and I thought, well, there have been successful entrepreneurs that have started in other areas outside of the Silicon Valley. I want to make sure that I get a chance to fund them. Microsoft was one, and Gateway Computer was one in South Dakota, and of course in Texas there was Dell Computer and a number of others.
Compaq.
And I thought, well, why don't I make sure that I somehow get to meet the entrepreneurs in other places? And I didn't have a big enough fund or enough money to make them all company owned. And so I thought, well, maybe it's some sort of a franchise model would work better. And so I did it. And I started with a couple of funds that were just right there. One was in Alaska and one was in Utah. And then we were more deliberate about where we set them up. So we went to LA and New York and Chicago. And then we created one that was called ePlanet, DFJ ePlanet, that was everywhere around the world. And that was a big risk because, people really didn't. This is before there was email. This is before there was, Zoom, Skype, any of that. Phone calls were $50 a minute or something internationally. And so for us to try something outside of the US was nuts. But it turned out we found Skype and we found Baidu outside of the US. And that was, those became huge successes. So it was risky, very risky to think that we could set up venture businesses outside the US, but turns out there are a lot of them now.
So you were kind of like the original Rise of the Rest.
It's really
Steve
funny.
Thing about entrepreneurship everywhere.
People. In fact, I just got interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, and they said, "What about ESG?" And I said, "We've been ESG forever. I don't know what you guys are. You just made up a term for it, but this basically, we invest into a world that we want, and that has worked out very well. So it's good business to do it, and I don't need to be regulated down because we've been doing it for years. So
right.
Don't put regulations on people just because you think that they should do this. You want to just let freedom ring and see the free markets and work their magic."
So do you going back to the Draper model, that mean like you get a piece of like all these funds all over the world?
Yeah, and each deal is a little different too. So in some cases we took a majority position, in those funds.
And
in
often
most
an
cases,
investor helped seed them.
yeah, in most cases, we just participated or branded them or invested in them, or just kind of helped them get going, and maybe we take some carry for that. And then what we found out, we were thinking of this as a hub. We were the hub and they were spokes. But then we realized that it was more of a network. They would learn from each other more than they'd learn from us. And so suddenly this was a network of very effective network that helped us establish best practices and share deal flow and do all those things that we really benefit from. And then you start seeing things like, now, why is it that I saw two almost identical companies, and one was a $20 million valuation in Silicon Valley, and the other one was a $3 million valuation in Utah? And I started to think, there's an arbitrage here.
Seen that in Austin.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Valuations are slightly lower in Austin.
Yeah,
you know where they used to be really low and now they're super high is in India.
Yeah.
It used to be like the place to go for a cheap deal, but now it's like you pay higher than in the Silicon Valley.
Wow. All right, so going back to Baidu and Skype for a minute, those were some of the earliest big success stories in their respective countries, right? And one of the biggest European, kind of internet success stories early on.
Yeah, certainly the biggest Eastern European one.
Biggest Eastern European, biggest in China. So when you were investing in those, was that like a matter of you really like dialed it in and had the best deal flow and way to pick the right companies to figure out of all the billions of Chinese people, like Baidu is the one? Or did you like do a whole bunch of them and like Baidu's the one that like you got lucky it made it?
Almost something in between those two things. Because in China, just the fact that we invested at all in China was absolutely crazy. That we were putting any money into China. But the fact that we started to put money into China attracted all of these entrepreneurs, and we had the ability to pick and choose which ones.
You made a network around you.
Yeah, we were more of a magnet than a scattered shot, and weirdly, I met Pony Ma and I met Jack Ma, and I didn't back either one, and it was really more. Robin Lee really spoke English very well. These two, their English was very broken, and I had a very difficult time understanding what it was that they wanted to do. I understood that Jack Ma kind of wanted to do a copy of Amazon, but I thought, it's too obvious, too many people doing it. But Jack Ma also had this crazy passion for what he was doing, and I should have picked up on that. So I might have had two big winners out of there. And then in Skype's case, that was one where I just had a guy that was kind of circling around Europe looking for deals, and he said, you ought to talk to these guys. You said you were really interested in file sharing. These guys are doing file sharing for another reason. And then I looked at it and I said, I back them. And then they changed their model and they said, oh, by the way, we're going after the long distance carrier. And I thought, even better than the idea they had before.
So let's talk about
the idea they had before was sort of a shared Wi-Fi. But we had we really did have the pick of the litter because there was nothing there. And I feel like we've been able to do that in a number of different places.
Maybe the crypto markets.
Absolutely.
Not today.
And
previously.
in parts of South America, we've made some early investments, and those look like they're going to pay off too.
Yeah. So you mentioned something about investing in Skype, thinking it was one business, and it became a different one.
Well, they didn't take my money until they told me that they were going to change their business model.
Okay, but it's not. Has it ever happened before that did happen?
Yeah.
took your
Oh
money?
God, we made an investment in one company where 2 weeks after we made the investment, they came to us and they said, well, we lost our biggest customer, really our only customer, and we're going to change our model. And sometimes they come like 3 days after we fund them and they say, well, I fired my co-founder. And sometimes that's a good sign, it's hard to know. We, as a venture capitalist, you're fortunate because you're diversified. And so you can roll with the punches a little, because usually when there's some bad news, there's some good news somewhere else, and kind of balance.
So when somebody does that pivot like that, like not just like changing their strategy, but really like, oh, we're going to go do something else, is that usually a good thing or usually a bad thing? And 50-50, like what is it? Were you excited when you hear that, or are you not excited?
It's usually a good thing, because it's usually something that was sitting in the back of their minds. And after they got the money, they thought, you know what? This is what I should really be doing. And it's usually a little riskier. And it's also something that's a little less obvious to the marketplace. And that's when you're better off. Usually the big wins were for the weirdest things. I mean,
that's the story of Twitter, right?
Baidu was in China. Tesla was a car company, and it's been 50 years since there'd been a successful car company launch. SpaceX was going after NASA. They were nutty things. And the Skype guys were outlaws from the US. They couldn't come here because they started Colossal. So each one our biggest wins sometimes are the weirdest ones. Mm-hmm. Hotmail came to us with an entirely different business, and they switched when they realized we weren't going to fund that one. And then we funded the free web-based email thing, but they were giving something away for free. First time any consumer product decided they were just going to give it all away for free and not really have a business model beyond that. So they were all weird, but and Twitch was started with some guy, having a camera on him at all times so he could show the world what was happening all day. And now it's like now Twitch became this huge thing. Mm-hmm. So Robinhood were two guys who just decided that everybody in the world should be able to invest.
So why do you keep investing? Most people probably think of VCs and investors as people who are investing with some, larger financial strategy to make money. And I don't want to make any assumptions, but it just doesn't seem like you need to be investing to make any money.
Yeah, it's interesting. After the boom in the internet, I could have retired then, and I thought, well, no, I want to be a good model for my kids and everybody around me. I want to make sure that they see that hard work continues, and it's a fun way to live. In fact, it turns out all the people that are my age who are not working are the ones who are the most depressed. The other ones are anybody who's got a purpose in life. They're great. And so that was probably what drove me. But then we had another big boom, and the internet brought in more for me. And I thought, well, maybe I should, cash in now. But then Bitcoin showed up. And I thought, oh my God, this is fantastic. We now have the internet opened up the world. The geographic borders became less relevant and all that stuff. Suddenly, now we got a global currency, and we have something that represents freedom and trust. And you can take that freedom and trust all the way around the world. And that's why I wear a Bitcoin tie. And all of a sudden I got fired up again. And I thought, wow, this new technology, Bitcoin, the blockchain, smart contracts, artificial intelligence, big data, machine learning, all of that has the potential to transform the biggest industries in the world. And I said, I've got to be a part of this. It's too great. And I want to push forward that anthropological lift that we're about to get, because
So
I
something
think we're
always
going
comes
to be
along.
global. And I think that governments don't quite understand it, but they are in competition for us. They are now accountable to us. All these people moving to Texas, that's because Texas government is more attractive to run a business than California. And so they move out of California and move into Texas. That multiply that by all those states in the world and all the countries in the world. All those people who are leading those countries are trying to attract people just like Josh, who are bringing in business, bringing in entrepreneurs, bringing in money to their territory. And so that's a major shift. And as people realize that they're mobile and they can move across border and they can do business across border, then governance becomes more of an insurance policy or a series of insurance policies. And those have to be competitive. They have to be able to provide service that's commensurate with the taxes they charge. And if that's not the case, they're going to end up losing out. So this is a major, exciting time, and I can't wait for it. In the meantime, you do see governments like the Luddites all going, no, we're going to control everything. No, we got to keep people in. And, oh, we have borders and they're very important borders. Oh, we need trade wars and whatever. They're missing the whole point. The whole point is the world's catching up. Everybody's catching up to America. And the world can be one big, open, beautiful platform for a capitalistic society, which seems to work a lot better than the alternatives.
Yeah. See Sergey Brin creating some kind of country out in Fiji. We have Elon Musk and Joe Lonsdale setting up their own cities. Seems like what you said.
Those are cities and countries I want to participate in.
Yeah. If you really enjoy that concept, there's a book that one of my favorite books I've ever read, a sci-fi book by Alastair Reynolds called The Prefect.
Oh.
And and he's an astrophysicist who wrote all these sci-fi books, which means they're very believable because he has the science at least to like make them sound real. And so really great series of books that overall I enjoyed. But The Prefect I like the best. And one of the things about it that I found most so fascinating is it's in a future society situation where there's a planet, there's some people living on the planet, but there's a constellation of, basically think artificial moons, like satellites around the planet, say 100 of them. And each one has anywhere from a few 100,000 to 1 million people living on it. And each one is a different society, like a different set of rules, a different, and the main, they're all collected together for self-defense and to enforce democracy, just to allow that people can vote. But you can vote, you can choose to be in a society where you give up your rights. And many people choose to do that. Some choose to be in a very pure, like human, like physical reality. Some choose to be in a very virtual reality. There's a lot of other different choices people make. But it's one of those, in the world of abundance where everything can be, will be, they explore like all those different things. And I really, really enjoyed it. It's called The Prefect.
I think that's great because really we do want governments to be as innovative as the technology world. We want them to try new things and we want to see what works and we want them to innovate. And then if one of them is more attractive, then for them to copy that and improve on it so that people are more attracted to their country and or city or planet or whatever. So very exciting. I think this, I call it competitive governance, but I guess it's accountable government. I'm not sure which way
I think it's competitive.
Yeah.
It's big idea.
I think it's a big deal. And I think governance is a service that people have to recognize. And right now, with everybody saying, oh, you got to wear a mask, you got to do this, they're kind of loving their so-called power over people. But the best of the government people and the best of the politicians are recognizing freedom is the key. making sure that we are all free and making sure we're all. Something happened to your camera. Are you still there?
I am. Just give it a sec.
Okay. So making sure that we're all free and that we have this platform from which to innovate and try new things and not be slapped down by some regulation or another before we even try, before we can even innovate. There's so many interesting innovations that come out. I get to see them all the time as entrepreneurs come through. And some of those have been where there's no regulation or there's no law for them. And I think the key for them is just to grow as fast and quickly as possible and spread the word as quickly as possible so that when the regulators finally come, the vision will already be unveiled. And I think that the best countries are going to be the ones that are not trying to cling to their power, the ones that are not the last roar of the dying lion. They're the ones who are saying, hey, this is a big opportunity. El Salvador, all of a sudden, El Salvador is on the map. Malta, already rocking and rolling. Estonia has been very innovative as a government.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about El Salvador. That's probably a little risky still, but maybe.
Yeah,
Estonia.
but I mean, risky is the time to go in.
Yeah. So Bitcoin was the most recent thing to pull you back in. What's the next thing? Is it space? Is it new government?
I think it's leading, having entrepreneurs that will lead us toward this decentralized world, whether it's
Web3.
Yeah, whether it's free speech or new ways of doing business or NFTs or whatever it ends up being. I think, and I think all these things, identity and documents and so many things can be decentralized. The social media can be decentralized, and that gives so much more power back to people where they get that freedom. It gives them freedom, and they can put whatever they want up there. And if somebody doesn't like it, fine, they don't have to look at it. But the idea that somehow Facebook and Twitter are the arbiters of truth, I don't think that's very safe. I don't think that is that's not a healthy environment. That's not a place I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
So that freedom, it's coming. We got a great company called Unstoppable Domains. You can buy your own domain. You can go get joshua.crypto. I think probably it's still available. I don't know. You can certainly get joshuabaer.crypto. And then you can put whatever you want up there. You can say free Tibet if you're Chinese. You can say, I don't like my leader if you're Syrian. You can say whatever you want to say. And it stays. It can't be taken down. So that's a powerful thing. And it's valuable. Free speech for the world, so important.
Totally. So, when you think about that next big thing, I kind of always feel like the time I'll know that it's time to retire, if that ever happens, is when I'm just not interested in that next new thing. Right now,
Yeah.
I am. I want to know. I want to dig in.
I think that's what has kept me going. I mean, that next new thing keeps coming, and I keep going, oh, wow. Look what the world could look like now. So
why Austin right now? Why are you spending time in Austin?
Well, I do like the freedom Texas gives us. It's the attitude is can do. I mean, if I went and I saw a couple of interesting companies that I wouldn't probably see in the Silicon Valley. One was a vertical takeoff and landing vehicle that just took off, ran a couple of tests with a human in it.
Lift aircraft?
What's it called?
Was it lift aircraft?
Yeah. And then another one I saw, which was the the one that's going to 3D print houses on Mars. And Icon. And I looked at those two and I thought, Icon would probably have some local regulations that would say you can't do that here or whatever. And the I don't know, FAA, somebody would get in the way of Lyft sending a person up into the air. They'd say, oh, that wasn't safe or whatever. I think you've got to allow people to innovate. You got to allow some sort of a, 5-year sandbox on any new product, so that we let the world see what it is before we start saying, no, you can't do that. We're protecting ourselves from ourselves, and I don't think that's healthy. But anyway, so I go to Texas and it feels free, and freedom and trust are everything.
So why Capital Factory? Why are you hanging out with us?
You guys are the center of all the activity in Austin. So we want to make sure that we're attached and at the hip, and we get a chance to see all those great companies that come through Capital Factory. We think that it'll be a very symbiotic relationship with Draper Startup House. I think it's going to be great.
I've enjoyed it. We've done a lot of deals together already.
Yeah, that's good.
What makes you invest in a deal like Colossal?
It's so unique. When people come to me and they say, what's that?
Can you describe it for everybody real quick?
Yeah, Colossal is in effect using, I want to say cloning, but it's CRISPR to cut cut DNA strands in such a way and implant them with something else so that something new can grow. So they're going to take an elephant's DNA and they're going to cut a piece of a woolly mammoth and put it in there, and we're going to see another woolly mammoth, and we're going to see what happens. They're going to do the same thing with a tiger, and they're going to make it a saber-toothed tiger. And I think, and then the major breakthroughs are going to be healthcare. They're going to be medical, because they're going to be using CRISPR to genetically enhance or genetically grow new animals. And maybe that ends up being a cool zoo. But with that technology, they're going to find some things out that might make it so that we really understand our own DNA and what we can do to our DNA to enhance it to make ourselves healthier and happier. So I think it's going to be great. And when somebody comes to me with something, my son describes it as sci-fi. My son Adam runs Boost, and he says, we just back sci-fi. If it's got that kind of a feel like, wow, that could be really interesting. And then, is it a future I want to be in? And yes, I want to be in that future. I think it would be great fun to be in that future. And so we back them and hope that they do everything they say they're going to do and more.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things that gets me really excited about Colossal is the idea of de-extinction, of being able to both, take things that previously were extinct and allow them to thrive again, and then also to prevent things from ever being able to be extinct. You can gene bank. The way we store seeds to make sure that we can always repopulate the feedstocks of the earth. We can bank genes and make sure that no species ever goes extinct again.
I'm very interested to see when they bring back the T-Rex, because
you want full Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Well, I just want to see something, because I looked at a T-Rex's skeleton and I studied it for a while. I think I was waiting for somebody, and I thought, well, I might as well just see what this is all about. And I studied it for a while, and I said, this is not a land-based animal. It's from the water. There is no way you'd have these little teeny arms up here. Those are fins. They're for swimming. So so everybody else in the world thinks that T-Rex is a land-based animal running after all these things. I think it was a fish eater, and I think it was like something between a lizard and a crocodile. And so I look and I think, we probably don't really know what all these things were that lived before, and this is going to be a fun way to find out.
Wow, fascinating. Crazy things we're going to see in the future. You got any questions for me about Austin?
Yeah,
What have you seen?
Yeah, tell me about Capital Factory and how the model works. It's a little bit complicated. I know you got sort of two funds and two different ways of operating, but how do you attract the entrepreneurs to come to Capital Factory, and then what do you do for them, and then what happens when they come out?
Capital Factory is really, I almost think of it like a website, or a blog that produces content that then creates a community around it, right? Which then you're working with. But for us, the blog is actually our space. It's the meetups and the events and the things that are happening here that bring hundreds and thousands of people in every day and every week but all entrepreneurs, all people working on, all builders, all change makers, all people trying to go, make their dent in the world. And then when you're doing that, when you're at that early stage, it's all about meeting other people. It's all about meeting investors and customers and other people to work with, talent. And it's really hard. It's hard to build that network, especially if you're maybe an underrepresented founder or if you're just getting started for the first time. But even if you just sold your company, it's not that easy, because it's not like you can go hire all the people from your old company. You're like legally prohibited from that. Your network's kind of gone, right? And you started a company 10 years ago and you just sold it. You don't have the network of a founder, right? And so really that's what we do is create, we're a country club for entrepreneurs. We're Disney World, for startups. We're a place where every day there's all these people coming together and collaborating and smashing together for the purpose of launching and starting new things. And we got kind of a few different business models around that to try to help make that sustainable. But then in the end, give us, we think, a real strategic advantage in investing in these companies to help make this all sustainable. And we have an advantage because we think we know more about them because of all these interactions, because we're living with them every day, because we're putting them in front of people like you and in front of the Army and NASA and watching what they say and all the things they do. And then also because the act of doing that, putting them in front of all these people, is seen as a benefit to them. They really like that. They actually give us a right to invest. That's our payment, is we get the right to invest. And so that's really the big picture of the business model. We do it a couple different ways, is try to build this big machine that can help everyone at scale, that can help a lot of people, that actually gets better the more people are in it. Like, it can help more the more people that are in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then use that to get this structural advantage in investing in all the best companies, right? Help everybody raise money and invest in all the ones that work, and then feed that. And then it's just a virtuous system. Feed that back into the system to then help it scale and make it bigger.
That's great. So you're a community builder and very social. It's a social thing.
Yeah, although I will say, it's in another way too, though. I know myself. Many people who don't know me that well probably think I'm an extrovert, and they, that's,
no, I know better.
I do a lot of very extroverted things.
In fact, I'm wondering where your dog is.
Yeah, right. She's right here, right next to me. But I'm not. If I test an introvert. You can think of it different ways. For me, but the way I define it is like, how do you go to recharge? Where do you get your energy from? And like doing this with you right now, I like it, but it kind of tires me out. Like, after this, I want to go be quiet. At the end of a long day, I want to go home. Whereas, like, I have another friend of mine who I think of as an extrovert. At the end of a long day, he wants to go to a bar and sit down with his friends and hang out. And that would tire me out more. It's not that I don't like being with my friends, but that's not relaxing to me in the same way that it would be to just be by myself. So anyway, so that's why I think
I'm somewhere in between. I think during the day, I feed off the energy of other people, but when it gets to be the end of the day, I'm ready to go.
You're ready. Well, so I think of Capital Factory like a place made for introverts, actually. It's like a place where, because a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of geeks and engineers and tech people are kind of introverted. So it's a place where it's designed to help you accomplish these goals of meeting these different people. Everyone has a job. That that's why they're there, that there's acceptable, appropriate ways to approach people, to find the people that you need to approach, and to do it at different kind of levels of friction. If you need it to be more formal, you can go sign up for office hours or get a formal meeting. But if you're more of a hustler, you can just show up and find that place where Tim Draper's probably going to show up, and you can go corner him at the startup house and give him your pitch, right? And get in front of him and make it happen. And you kind of have that whole range of options.
So what do you see happening out there? What industries or what products or services or whatever are you seeing that you think this is going to be really important in 10 or 20 years?
A lot of different things, no surprises. And one of the things that I love about Austin is it's not like a one-trick pony. It's not like certain cities have certain things they're really good at or focused on. And I really do think we see just about everything. If it's hot, if it's interesting, it's coming. It's happening. We're seeing it here, and we're getting to participate in it. Like you, I think blockchain and Web3 are extremely disruptive, are going to penetrate and infiltrate and transform every industry and everything that we do, and in the way that the internet has and continues to. And that's super exciting. And it's one of just the most disruptive things. The internet didn't, I don't think, nearly change things as much as Web3 will, and disrupt actually the social order too. I mean, there's so much wealth transfer going on right now, that much more so than in Web 1 and the internet, that I don't think even most of the world understands yet. And that's going to have big implications, right? There's going to be new sources of power. There's going to be inflation. There's going to be all kinds of things. But we're going to live in a different world because of it. And I like you. I like the way that world looks eventually. And I'm not saying it might not be painful getting there, because there's going to be lots of ups and downs no matter what. But I'm excited about that. I think that's an exciting place I want to be.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to ride through the torrent before we get to the world we're hoping to get to.
Yeah. So on that note, the thing I've been thinking about a lot lately, I've been asking my team this, is at first I was thinking, how can Capital Factory be Web3? How could we be a DAO? How could we, in some way incorporate that into what we do? And we are still thinking about that. But I'm also now thinking, just in the way that we think we add value to startups or entrepreneurs, we bring them customers, investors, talent. How could we add value to Web3? How can we add value to a DAO? How can we add value to some of these other organizations that might look different than it does with a startup? But could we, in some way, can we be a participant, a contributor as an entity? I don't know.
I think you're going to be, you're sort of set up the way you think about the whole thing. You're kind of like a DAO. You're just thinking community, spread the word, get it out there. And I think that's what a DAO is all about. And it's a bit of, where a corporation is for the good of the shareholders and a nonprofit's for the good of society or whatever. A DAO is really for the good of a community. And I think that is going to, I think there are going to be some really interesting evolutionary changes there that make our business very different. We've gone through, we funded the two of the first ICOs, Tezos and Bancor. And when we did it, it took me a long time to understand what was going on. And then I thought, oh, well, wait, if we're investing, we're going to need to be a piece of your company, but we also need a piece of these tokens, and it should be commensurate with how much of the tokens you have and how much of the company you have. And that was a struggle, and we had to change all our legal documents, had to do all these things around it. But now these DAOs do have, if you can build a great community around yourself, then your tokens can appreciate in value, and people will want to be a part of those tokens if if you're a great society, if you're a society where everybody's working hard and building toward a better service, people are going to want to all interrelate through that. And so, yeah, whether we launch a DAO ourselves or we just operate with Bitcoin or others, I'm excited about what it does. It does make people think, no, I want to be a part of that women's community. I want to be a part of that Bitcoin community. I want to be a part of that environmental community. I want to be a part of that space community. Those are important ways of looking at the world. And I think since we're going to all be global and we're all going to be interconnected, that's the way people will relate. They'll say, this is important to me, and so I want to be a part of that.
Awesome. Well, we're just about at time. Anything else you want to make sure to leave everybody with? Any other thoughts?
No, go watch Meet the Drapers.
Go watch Meet the Drapers.
Great fun.
Where's the best place to watch Meet the Drapers?
YouTube mostly, or go to draper.tv.
Draper.tv or on YouTube.
Yeah. And then if you're an entrepreneur and sort of feel like you need some sort of a boost or something, think about Draper University. It's a 5-week program. Completely change your mindset toward trying new things and freedom, and being willing to fail and try new stuff and fail again until you succeed.
When are you having your first class in Austin?
That will be coming, because as you know, the woman who runs Draper University now lives in Austin.
That's right.
It's coming. We don't have a scheduled time, but our next Draper University in the Silicon Valley is May.
Awesome. Well, coming up in Silicon Valley in May, Austin sometime after that, and Tim Draper to be found also in Silicon Valley or in Austin or all over the world. Super glad to have you join us here today, and just really, excited to be co-investing with you in our fund, in companies like Colossal and maybe ones like Icon and Lyft and others. There's lots of good deals to do, and we like doing it with you. So thanks for being part of our community.
Gosh, I think we should keep brainstorming, because I think we might nail this DAO thing sometime.
All right, I like that. Let's do that next time we're together.
All right. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on the Capital Factory show.
Appreciate it. Jill, you got anything else for us, or are we signing off here? I think it's probably just us. But,
I think we put Jill to sleep.
Uh-oh. No, she says we're all good.
She said, oh, all good.
Yes, we were all good. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. It was great to see everyone here, and I hope you guys learned something like I did. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Tim.